Have you ever heard of the fallen angels chained in the Euphrates River? These mysterious beings are mentioned in the prophecies of the book of Revelation, and their roles are directly connected to the final events that will change the course of humanity. But who are these angels? Why are they imprisoned, and what will happen when they are released? To understand all of this, we need to go back to the beginning of a story that is both fascinating and terrifying. Imagine a time when heaven was pure and harmonious, until something unexpected happened, a rebellion that challenged the order established by God. Who led this revolt, and what drove angels, who were once so close to God, to walk a path of darkness? The answer to these questions lies at the heart of the battle that still influences Earth to this day. It all began with Lucifer, the most radiant angel, who chose to rise up against the Creator. It wasn't an isolated decision, and he wasn't alone. Others joined him, and that choice brought devastating consequences. These angels, now known as fallen, did not disappear. They are imprisoned, but for how long? And more importantly, what will it mean when their chains are broken? The book of Revelation tells us that their release will mark the beginning of a great tribulation, a period of suffering and disorder that will impact all of humanity. But how did we get here? How did the angels closest to God become symbols of rebellion and destruction? This is the journey we are about to explore, a story far from over, full of secrets that shape the future of all of us. Now, let's delve into the origin of this rebellion, into the choices Lucifer made, and how he led others into his fall. Who were these angels that chose to follow the path of darkness? And how does this affect our lives today? If you believe in divine justice and the promise of redemption, like this video to support spreading this message. Subscribe to the channel and share it with those who need to hear this story. Don't forget to comment below. What's your take on the fallen angels and their impact on our world today? We want to hear from you. To truly understand the fallen angels chained in the Euphrates River, we need to go back to the very beginning. Before there was chaos, before there was a fall. In a time when heaven was pure and harmonious, there was one being who stood out among the angels, Lucifer. He was the brightest of all, known as the light-bearer, resplendent in beauty and wisdom, standing closest to God. He had everything, glory, authority, and admiration. But it wasn't enough. Deep within, a thought began to grow, one that would change everything. Why serve when he could rule? Lucifer's pride started as a spark, but quickly turned into a flame. He desired not just to be admired, but to be exalted above all, even God. This growing pride pushed him to challenge the divine authority, and in his arrogance, he believed that he could overthrow God himself. But Lucifer was not alone in his descent. His charisma and powerful influence swayed many other angels to follow him, convincing them that they could be more, that they could be free from their Creator's commands. Among these followers were others who would later be known as fallen angels, beings like Caesar, Azazel, and Beelzebub. Together, they formed a coalition, a rebellion that sought to seize control of heaven. This rebellion, however, was met with resistance. The archangel Michael, loyal and unwavering, stood against Lucifer and his followers. A great battle erupted, a clash between the forces of loyalty and rebellion. The heavens shook as angels fought against angels, light clashing against darkness. In the end, Lucifer and his allies were defeated. They were cast out, stripped of their former glory, and banished from heaven. The brightest star fell, and with him many others. But their defeat did not mean the end of their influence. Expelled from heaven, Lucifer was now known as Satan, the adversary. Cast to earth, he did not relent in his rebellion. Instead, he turned his attention to humanity, determined to continue his revolt against God by corrupting and misleading the Creator's beloved creation. This was only the beginning of a much larger story, a story of rebellion that would now unfold not in heaven, but on earth itself. And so, we must ask, how did these fallen angels continue their work on earth? What roles did they assume? And how did their influence shape the fate of humanity? The story continues as we explore the roles of the fallen, their dark teachings, and the chaos they brought upon our world. When Lucifer fell, he did not fall alone. Alongside him were three other powerful angels, Caesar, Azazel, and Beelzebub, each of them playing a crucial role in shaping humanity's fate after their rebellion. Once glorious beings of light, these fallen angels brought darkness and chaos into the world, each leaving a distinct mark that humanity still feels today. Their influence spread like ripples in a pond, touching everything, transforming the divine order into something twisted and destructive. Lucifer, now known as Satan, became the great deceiver. His weapon was subtlety, and his target was the human heart. He began with lies, convincing humans that they could be like gods, free from divine restrictions, a strategy he has used since the Garden of Eden. He sowed seeds of doubt, tempting people to question God's goodness and authority, leading them down paths of destruction. His influence is the root of pride, greed, and ambition, everything that turns humanity against its creator. Satan sought not only to corrupt individuals, but to turn the entire world into his domain, a kingdom where he could reign in place of God. But Lucifer was not alone in his dark mission. Caesar, another of the fallen, had a different but equally destructive role. Caesar was the leader of the Watchers, angels who were originally sent to observe humanity and protect them. Instead, he and his followers succumbed to their forbidden desires. They took human women for themselves, giving birth to a race of giants called the Nephilim. The Nephilim were creatures unlike anything seen before, beings of immense strength and violence. Their existence brought chaos, fear, and corruption to the world, forcing God to intervene with a great flood to cleanse the earth. Caesar not only disobeyed God, but led others into disobedience, forever altering the course of human history. Azazel, yet another of the fallen, had his own way of corrupting humanity. He taught men to forge weapons, introducing violence on an unprecedented scale. It was Azazel who revealed secrets that God never intended for humanity to know, leading to war, destruction, and bloodshed. He taught women to use adornments and makeup, inciting vanity and distracting them from their spiritual path. Azazel's influence went beyond physical violence. He reshaped human society, driving it towards superficiality and chaos. His teaching sparked desires that led to endless conflict, idolatry, and a growing divide between humanity and God. Beelzebub, known as the Lord of the Flies, brought a different kind of destruction. He was a symbol of pestilence, disease, and impurity. Through subtle and insidious means, he influenced entire nations, turning leaders and people away from God. Many ancient cultures worshipped him as a deity, mistaking his power for divinity. Beelzebub's tactics were not always overt. He thrived in the shadows, exploiting human weaknesses, planting seeds of discord, and spreading corruption quietly but effectively. He targeted not just the physical world but also the spiritual, eroding faith and leading people into idolatry. Together, these four fallen angels, Lucifer, Caesar, Azazel, and Beelzebub, created a network of influence that still shapes the world today. Their rebellion did not end in heaven. It continues to ripple through time, affecting humanity's choices, beliefs, and fate. But what does this mean for us today? How are we still affected by their actions? The story is far from over, and the darkness they brought still looms, awaiting the moment when the chains that bind them will be released. And now we move towards understanding the significance of the Euphrates River, the symbol of their imprisonment, and what the prophecy tells us about their future release. How will the world respond when these ancient forces are finally unleashed? The Euphrates River, mentioned time and again in the ancient texts, carries a heavy significance in the prophecies surrounding the fallen angels. This river, one of the most important waterways of early civilization, is not just a geographical landmark. It serves as a boundary between worlds, between what is seen and what remains hidden. It is here, beneath the waters of the Euphrates, that the four fallen angels remain bound, awaiting the day of their release. But why the Euphrates? What makes this river so important in the context of end times? In the book of Revelation, it is said that one day the Euphrates River will dry up, signaling that the time has come for the fallen angels to be released. This release is not a symbol of freedom. It is the beginning of a judgment, a reckoning for the world. When they are unbound, they will unleash a wave of destruction, tribulation unlike anything humanity has ever experienced. The drying of the Euphrates marks the point of no return, the initiation of the final sequence of events that will lead to God's ultimate judgment of evil. The river itself acts as a symbolic barrier. As long as its waters flow, it represents the restraint of evil, a divine control over these powerful beings. But once it dries up, that restraint will be removed, and the influence that they once had on humanity will return with full force. This prophecy serves as a stark reminder that, despite the centuries of relative peace, there is a latent force, bound and waiting. What will humanity do when that which has been chained for so long is finally unleashed? And so, we are left with more questions. What does this mean for our time? Are we witnessing signs that point towards the fulfillment of these prophecies? Let's continue by exploring the judgment that awaits these fallen angels and the catastrophic events that will unfold once they are released. The prophecies of the book of Revelation do not merely hint at the release of the fallen angels. They declare it as a certainty, an inevitability tied to the final days of human history. The release of these beings from the Euphrates River marks the beginning of a period that will be unlike any other. It is the moment when divine restraint will be lifted, and the world will plunge into chaos. But why must they be released? What is the purpose of such a frightening event in the grand plan of God? The release of these fallen angels serves as a prelude to the Great Tribulation, an age of unimaginable hardship, suffering, and disorder. It is during this time that the true nature of humanity will be tested, and all of creation will come to see the ultimate power of God. This period is filled with trials that will bring both believers and non-believers to a point of confrontation. Confrontation with themselves, with their beliefs, and with the evil that has been restrained for millennia. These four angels will lead armies, unleash plagues, and bring about destruction that is meant to shake the very foundation of mankind's existence. But despite the fear and the overwhelming power of these events, there is a greater promise woven into this prophecy, a promise of redemption. The fallen angels, Lucifer, Seza, Azazel, and Beelzebub, who have caused so much suffering and rebellion, will ultimately face their judgment. God's plan is not just to allow chaos to reign, but to show through tribulation that He alone has power over all forces, both good and evil. In the end, these angels will meet their fate, cast into the lake of fire, where they will be defeated once and for all, unable to harm or deceive humanity again. This final judgment is not just a victory over the fallen angels, but a definitive statement of divine justice. It will be the moment when the lies, corruption, and destruction brought upon the world will end, and God's glory will be restored. But until then, the world must endure the trial, a test of faith, perseverance, and loyalty to the Creator. It is a time that will divide those who stand for the light from those who succumb to the darkness. And so, we must ask ourselves, how will we prepare for these times? How will humanity stand when the forces that have been waiting in the shadows are finally unleashed? The story of the fallen angels is not just a warning, it is a call to vigilance. Now, let's look into one of the most significant aspects of this story, how Caesar and the Watchers, by breaking divine laws, paved the way for one of the most terrifying chapters in humanity's history. Among the fallen angels, Caesar held a particularly destructive role, one that deeply intertwined with the history of humanity. Caesar was the leader of a group of angels known as the Watchers. These angels were originally tasked with watching over humanity, observing and guiding without intervening. However, something shifted. Caesar and his fellow Watchers could not resist the allure of the mortal world, the beauty of the daughters of men, and their curiosity quickly transformed into obsession. Their desire led them to do the unthinkable, breaking divine law by descending to earth and taking human women as partners. This union between the Watchers and humans gave birth to a new and monstrous race, the Nephilim, giants of enormous size and strength, beings that were neither fully angelic nor human. The Nephilim were powerful, but their power was not used for good. They became tyrants, spreading fear, corruption, and unimaginable violence across the earth. Their very existence was a perversion of God's design, a reminder of the deep disobedience of the Watchers. Caesar, in his rebellion, had not only betrayed his sacred duty, but had also brought about a race that would lead humanity into chaos. The Nephilim ruled with force, their presence a dark shadow over what should have been a flourishing human civilization. The actions of Caesar and the Watchers went beyond the sin of mingling with humans. They shared forbidden knowledge, secrets meant only for the heavens. They taught humans about sorcery, weaponry, and even secrets of the cosmos, things that were never intended for humanity to understand. This knowledge, given without divine permission, led people further away from God's will. The pursuit of power, the rise of magic, and the spread of violence were all fueled by the teachings of the Watchers. Caesar's influence directly corrupted humanity's innocence, driving them deeper into sin and darkness. The wickedness of the Nephilim and the corruption of humanity reached such a level that God himself had to intervene. It was because of the chaos and the widespread moral decay brought by the Nephilim that God decided to send a great flood to cleanse the earth. This act of divine judgment was both a reset and a punishment for the waywardness of mankind and the fallen Watchers. The flood wiped out the Nephilim, erasing their physical presence from the world but leaving a scar on human history, a reminder of what happens when divine boundaries are crossed. But Caesar and his companions were not simply destroyed. Their punishment was different. They were cast into a deep, dark prison, bound until the day of final judgment. Their fate serves as a reminder of the severe consequences of disobedience and the dangers of mixing the divine with the mortal. The Nephilim may have vanished, but the impact of Caesar's rebellion lingers on. The scars they left behind are still visible in humanity's struggles with pride, power, and the pursuit of forbidden knowledge. So what does the fate of Caesar and the Watchers mean for us today? How can we recognize the echoes of their rebellion in our own lives and resist the temptation to reach beyond what God has given us? Next, we turn our focus to Azazel, another fallen angel whose contributions to humanity were far from divine. His influence continues to shape the conflicts and desires that plague our world even now. Among the fallen, Azazel played a unique role in humanity's corruption, one that focused on the gift of forbidden knowledge. When Azazel fell from grace, he chose to share secrets that were never meant for human hands, secrets that would lead humanity astray. He taught men how to forge weapons from metal, arming them with tools that turned disputes into battles and arguments into wars. It was Azazel who introduced humanity to the art of warfare, a knowledge that would inevitably spiral into countless conflicts, death, and destruction throughout history. But Azazel's teachings did not stop with weapons. He also taught women how to use adornments, makeup, and jewelry, fostering vanity and focusing their hearts on superficial beauty rather than on spiritual growth. What may have seemed like a harmless desire to beautify oneself quickly became a distraction, a means by which people were lured away from a life of devotion to God. Vanity and pride began to flourish, and with it, the seeds of idolatry took root in society. Azazel's influence reached beyond the physical. He corrupted the very essence of what it meant to live in God's image. The knowledge Azazel gave humanity had irreversible consequences. Warfare led to chaos, bloodshed, and division, while vanity fueled envy, competition, and moral decay. Societies became obsessed with power, wealth, and appearance, and the spiritual connection with God grew weaker. Azazel's legacy is a world where the pursuit of power and external beauty overshadows the pursuit of divine wisdom and inner peace. His teachings still echo in the conflicts and desires that consume humanity today, a constant reminder of how fragile we are when tempted with power beyond our understanding. Azazel, like Seza and the other Watchers, was eventually bound, awaiting the final judgment. But the damage was already done, and the ripples of his actions continued to affect humanity. What, then, is the way forward for a world so deeply influenced by these fallen beings? The answer may lie in understanding Beelzebub and the subtler, more insidious forms of corruption he introduced. Let's explore how this fallen angel became the embodiment of pestilence and deception. While Lucifer, Seza, and Azazel used overt rebellion and forbidden knowledge to bring about chaos, Beelzebub's approach was more insidious. Known as the Lord of the Flies, Beelzebub brought corruption in ways that were subtle yet devastating. He became the embodiment of pestilence, disease, and spiritual impurity, acting not only through direct destruction, but through the slow, creeping decay of the human spirit. His influence was not limited to warfare or vanity. It was about eroding humanity from the inside out. Beelzebub thrived on manipulation and deception. Unlike the other fallen angels, his methods were not always grand or visible. Instead, he exploited human weaknesses, fear, despair, and doubt. He sowed seeds of mistrust and discord, working through the shadows to lead people away from God without them even realizing it. His influence could be seen in the quiet spread of disease, the idolization of false gods, and the spiritual decay that turned entire nations from the righteous path. Throughout history, many cultures even began to worship him as a deity, mistaking his insidious power for divine authority. The most dangerous aspect of Beelzebub's influence was his ability to corrupt the soul. He turned people's focus from the Creator to material desires, planting idols in the hearts of humanity, anything that could divert attention away from true worship. Beelzebub's presence was subtle, but his impact was immense, quietly infiltrating leaders and rulers, leading them to make decisions that plunged their people into idolatry, corruption, and despair. His tactics weren't flashy. They were silent, creeping through society like an unseen plague. Beelzebub's influence, like that of the other fallen angels, serves as a reminder of how vulnerable humanity can be to forces that operate in the shadows. How can we stand firm against something so pervasive, something that quietly corrupts the very essence of our faith? To answer this, we need to understand the bigger picture. God's plan for ultimate redemption and the promise that, despite all the forces of darkness, His light will prevail. Let's now turn to what awaits these fallen beings in the end, and how divine justice will finally triumph. The stories of Lucifer, Caesar, Azazel, and Beelzebub are not just tales of the past, they are warnings for today. Though these fallen angels are imprisoned, their influence has not disappeared. Their actions have left a lasting impact, woven into the very fabric of human history, and the echoes of their rebellion continue to shape our world. Pride, vanity, conflict, spiritual decay, these are the legacies of the fallen, and if humanity is not vigilant, these same forces could once again rise, pushing us further from the path that God intended. Faith becomes our greatest weapon in the ongoing battle against the remnants of their influence. It is faith that provides the light to navigate through the darkness, to recognize deception for what it truly is. Vigilance means understanding that the spiritual battle is not just a metaphor, but a reality. We are surrounded by temptations, by lies whispered in our ears, words designed to turn us away from what is good, pure, and righteous. The influence of the fallen is subtle. It may come in the form of temptation, greed, pride, or despair, all tools they use to lead humanity astray. However, God's power is far greater than any force of darkness. It is the unwavering light that can expose and dispel even the deepest shadow. No matter how pervasive the influence of the fallen angels may be, the promise of redemption and divine justice is always stronger. Faith reminds us that we are never alone in this battle. God's strength is our shield, and His wisdom is our guide, enabling us to discern right from wrong, truth from deception. How, then, should we live in a world still marked by their influence? The answer lies in embracing faith, remaining vigilant, and drawing closer to God's truth. And as we turn our attention to the culmination of this story, we are reminded that there is hope, an ending that promises justice, an end to all evil. Let's now move toward that final resolution, the promise of God's ultimate triumph over the forces of darkness. As we reach the conclusion of this story, we are reminded of one unshakable truth: God's justice will always prevail. The fallen angels, Lucifer, Caesar, Azazel, and Beelzebub, may have brought chaos, suffering, and rebellion, but they are not the final victors. The book of Revelation gives us a vivid picture of what is yet to come. These beings, who once stood in the highest of heavenly places, will be cast into the lake of fire, a fate from which there is no return. It is here that their influence will be ended, forever severed from the world they once sought to corrupt. The release of these angels from their chains will be terrifying, a time when tribulation will reach its peak, but it also marks the beginning of their end. God's judgment will be final and complete, and every force that has opposed His will shall be defeated. The lake of fire symbolizes not only their ultimate destruction, but also the restoration of divine order, a universe free from the influence of these malevolent beings. For humanity, this conclusion is a beacon of hope. Though the journey may be fraught with challenges, with temptations, and with trials, we are not left to face them alone. God strengthens those who trust in Him, offering not only protection but also wisdom to discern good from evil. It is through faith and endurance that we move towards the fulfillment of God's promise, a reality where darkness is extinguished, and only His light remains. The Euphrates River, often mentioned in prophecy, will play a significant role in this final chapter, symbolizing both the release and ultimate defeat of the fallen beings. Until that time comes, faith remains humanity's shield, a force capable of overcoming any adversity, and a constant reminder that good will always prevail. This story is far from over, but its ending is already written. God's victory is certain, and His justice will bring an end to all evil, ushering in a new era of peace. If you found hope in this message and believe in the power of divine justice, like this video and help share the light. Subscribe for more content that delves into the mysteries and profound truths of the Bible. Leave a comment below. How does this promise of ultimate triumph impact your view of the world today? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and remember, God's plan is greater than any challenge we face. Stay strong in faith, and we'll see you in the next video. May God bless you.